These ostriches are research ostriches. They work in conjunction with a university in Japan. And for those animal rights activists out there, of which I am not one, but these birds are not, the birds themselves are not really being experimented on. It's their eggs. And they're using these birds who were exposed and who are clear of avian flu. They do not have avian flu. They're used to develop avian flu antibodies in hopes of finding a vaccine. And so they want to get rid of these birds for a couple of different reasons. According to the CFIA, it's to protect the other flocks, but everybody's exposed to migratory birds. So that is sort of debunked. Then
it was ducks that originally, migratory ducks that originally brought the avian flu into this flock. So who's to say it's not going to happen again? Exactly. And they already have robust natural immunity.
Right. And so we can't have people thinking that natural immunity is still a thing.
Or that it's safe.
After we got through COVID and we just forgot about that. But also there's a big Moderna vaccine that's being developed. And so I think part of that is protect the investment in Moderna's vaccine. And again,
the mRNA platform specifically.
Yes. And again, if these birds were a danger, it's been 5 months since the first cull order came through. Nobody's sick. They've not become a disease vector. The birds are still alive. So I don't understand their argument now about the urgency of killing these birds. If after 5 months and a legal battle, which the farm unfortunately lost, that if none of the birds are sick with avian flu, they're not disease vectors, what is the point at this point?
Mm-hmm. Well, and they lost in a way, but there has been a few wins for the farm along the way.
Sure.
They won that initial appeal to not have that culling order executed 2 weeks roughly ago.
Yeah.
And then the one, what is it, like a disposal facility refused to take the carcasses. These are massive birds, like there's 400 of them, but they're like hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
They're massive. And this, waste dump site basically said, well, we won't take them without a test proving that they were actually infected, if I understood that correctly. And so where they're going to dispose of these birds, especially if they're such a biohazard, as the CFIA is treating this as some sort of like contamination site, and these birds as contaminated, well, then how are you going to effectively dispose of them if this is such a risk? And what you're saying is based in evidence, which a lot of it obviously is not. But regardless, Dre is on the scene. She posted yesterday, the bouncy castles have arrived in Freedom Convoy style at the ostrich farm protest. And then, not long after, the ostrich farm protesters, they were seen kind of making a mockery, satirically dressing up in hazmat suits after their security intel saw something suspicious near the premises. They were, because they're waiting with.
They know what's going to happen. Like the CFIA has gone to court to expect this to happen. They have people all the way into town watching. Because the CFIA is going to come and cull these birds. And I can't even imagine the logistics of it. To take an entire herd of birds, like I'm thinking as someone who is familiar with cattle, you normally have to like load them into a trailer in bunches, for lack of a better word. Take them
herd them.
Well, it wouldn't even be a herd, but you would just take, a dozen into a trailer, take them to the abattoir, have them killed, and then the abattoir has the ability to deal with the remains. I don't think, where do you take these birds to do that, right? Like, where do you do that? Having a stack of dead birds becomes a disease vector in and of itself.
Exactly. If this is the risk that if the risk is actually present that they claim there to be.
Having
Um,
decompose a stack of 400 decomposing birds becomes a bit of a disease vector for other things and a attraction for rats
Yeah,
also.
which is a whole other disease vector in and of itself.
Yeah.
I love that Drea, this was going back to Wednesday, and I'm sure you have spoken about it on the other live streams, but she calls it the Rebel Mobile, her new
Yeah, so
camper.
cute.
And she gives a tour on there. So you can also follow along on Drea's X page because she's posting a lot of updates there. I see one from just before we went live here. There's a Universal Ostrich Farms they've released a press release addressing some
Yes.
of the rumors circulating about the farm and the research that the birds were part of. So it's quite long. I won't go through all of it, but I'll just get back to the goal. The goal is to save healthy animals from an inhumane and unjustified death. And it seems it's just so bizarre how intent the government is on killing and culling these birds with, as we've pointed out, no real justification or rationale to do it. So this is about, government overreach, this continued fear mongering around pandemics and pandemic response, and we can just disavow charter rights, property rights, human rights, privacy, because it's a pandemic and we have to act quickly and we have to take these excessive measures and do all of these things to prevent the next pandemic, or in justifying it under pandemic prevention and response. And so this is the kind of thing that you will continually see the government do if that is the justification used. There doesn't have to be evidence. There doesn't have to be rationale. None of it has to be based in actual, tangible, gold standard level science. It can just be based on hysteria and, well, because we said so. And if we don't put our foot down somewhere, and
Yeah.
here is very much one of the hills to potentially die on, then where do you draw that line in the future? Because it's only going to happen again, as we've been told repeatedly by the powers that be and the pandemic bureaucracy at the
Yep.
WHO, that it's not a matter of if, but when the next pandemic hits. And so how far can the government go, and how far are the people willing to let the government go under the guise of pandemic prevention and preparedness? Because this is the next step.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's ostriches, and I've been very clear. I'm not like the biggest. I'm not a lobbyist for big ostrich. Let's just say that. But these are somebody's property at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if the state can come and take your property and destroy it, firearms owners, we know what this feels like. And they can do it now for whatever reason they want. They're making it up at this point. If we think about Nate Erskine Smith's vegan bill,
Yeah.
that the I think
Pandemic prevention. And
yeah,
yeah, it's like textbook called that.
yeah, and it was targeted at animal food production, particularly the beef industry, but along with that would come poultry and pork, basically saying we could shut down your food production if we believe it to be a vector of any sort of disease or pandemic. And
Yeah.
so that dovetails nicely into what's happening here. These are not, and these aren't even birds meant for human consumption. They're used in research. And also, I think it's a great shame that this farm, which is fighting for property rights at the end of the day and fair
Mm-hmm.
treatment and due process, by the way, these birds are not a problem. If they were a problem, it would have manifested in the last 5 months. But I think it's terrible that they have to issue a statement debunking all the rumors and lies being told about them. The birds were involved in COVID-19 research. Because wouldn't you want a vaccine that didn't involve mRNA? If you're somebody who, is in precarious health, and same people who get the flu vaccine, I guess, cancer patients, whatever. If you needed a vaccine, but you didn't want the experimental mRNA one, wouldn't you want one that was developed using these birds that are loved and cared for?
Yeah, and all it has to be, the World Health Organization has changed their definitions of pandemics. And so all it
Yeah,
has to be is I forget the exact phrase that they use, but essentially something of pandemic potential. It
right.
has the potential to cause a pandemic. Not that it will necessarily, or that there's evidence to support that pandemic is looming, but there is the potential there. So the verbiage, the wording that they use, you have to pay close attention, because this isn't something that is based in robust scientific evidence or vigorous
Yeah.
testing, clinical trial. Like there's none of that. It's
These people
all
change,
hyperbole and
yeah,
hysteria.
they changed the definition of what the vaccine would do
Yeah.
just so it fit the failure of their promises on that. So they will change anything to make it fit the facts as they see them. Now, if people want to support Dre's work, because she is there on the ground currently for now, although let's all recall she has a family with a little one to get back to, you can go to, I think it's SaveTheOstriches.com. You can
Yes.
support her work. Uh, and we did our best to do this as affordably as possible. The local motel is a little bit away, and you have to take a ferry to get back. So we thought by the time Drea rents a car, gets up there, gets to the motel, it finds out something's happening, gets on the ferry and comes back, she would miss it all. So she is literally camped there at Ostrichapalooza. Um, and she'll bring the news as it breaks. But as it turns out, yesterday the RCMP came and sort of did a bit of a wellness check. They brought their police liaison team, which I think they're doing some surveillance to sort of check the temperature of the crowd there before the CFIA, as Drea calls them, hitmen, come in to cull the birds. But as you can see, the farm handled it just cheerfully, more cheerfully than I would, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if something happens today, maybe
Tomorrow.
even the next day, we'll know. Drea will bring us the news.
Yeah.
We vote, they ignore us. Alberta's values just don't match Ottawa's, and they never will.